when to walk away. Maybe that's the most difficult question to answer in our lives, whether it's on the professional side or in our personal lives. When do we get up and walk away? And how do we know that that's the right time to do it? And how do we know that that's the right thing to do? When to get up and walk away. In this video, I want to dive into that subject. And I want to give you some insights which might help and support you. If you're in a position in which you're feeling things are not the way they should be, whether it's in your career, whether it's in business, whether it's in a business relationship with a partner, or whether it's in a private, personal relationship or in your marriage, when is the right time to give up and walk away? So let's get into it. Hi guys, my name is Eddie Lindenbaum from EddieForLife Coaching and Consulting. In over 40 years of doing business and more than 25 years on the spiritual path, I myself have encountered so many times the question, Eddie, when is the right time to get up and walk away? And I'll tell you something, from a very open place, many times in my life, I didn't get up and walk away when I should have. What are the reasons that keep us in a toxic relationship? What are the reasons that keep us in a business which is not going well and maybe has no chance of going well in the future? What are the reasons that keep us in a business partnership with a partner of ours who we feel maybe that we're doing all the work and he or she are not doing? And what are the reasons that keep us in a marriage which is failing and we know that there's no real future there? One of the reasons is a lack of will on our side to get up and get into some sort of an encounter which might not feel good to us. In other words, we don't want to go to war. We don't want to fight. We don't want to get into a confrontation. Confrontations are difficult for us. I know that personally because even though I've been in many things very aggressive in my life, also in business for many years, I've changed that. 20 years ago, I changed totally. And even though I come from the martial arts my whole life, so my outlook is I wouldn't say confrontational at all, but it's standing up for what's right and for what is rightfully mine. But there are many times in our lives that we don't want to get into a confrontation, even though that sometimes we don't have a choice. And when we do not confront things as they are, from a place of respect, from a place of being a gentleman, if we're a guy, of course, from a place of inner strength and quiet awareness, if we do not get into that confrontation, which doesn't have to be a violent one, and when I say violent, of course, I don't mean physical, I mean emotional or even a mental confrontation. It could be a quiet confrontation, a very logical confrontation, but sometimes these things have to happen. And if they don't happen, then we continue in the rut of our lives and we go in a downward spiral, and it just gets worse. Life is about standing up for what is right for us. Yes, sometimes, I'll put it in a different way. There's a fine line being standing up and thinking what's right for me or being egocentric and taking the other person's conditions into account and having compassion. The thing is that a lot of times we fall on the side of taking too much into account the other side, and we don't take enough into account our needs and what's good for us. So we continue in the place of not having the right surroundings, the right energy for us. We continue in a life which is bad for us, and things do not get better on their own. So that's maybe the main reason of why we don't get up and leave when we should. But when is the right time to get up and leave? How do we know that that's the right time? Let's look for a moment at our marriages. or not our marriages, but let's look for a moment at a marriage which is toxic, in which both parties, the husband and wife, are always fighting, are always demeaning the other side in front of the children even. I'm not saying physical abuse, though emotional abuse and verbal abuse, in my eyes, is just as bad. However, if there's physical abuse, well, that's a game over. Then we have to get up and leave, and it's better one day before or 1 hour before. However, when is the right time to leave when things are not good in a marriage? My rule of thumb, and I counsel a lot of my clients on this, also people who go through divorce. My rule of thumb is do everything in your power, everything, to try to make things better. Go to counseling, go to couples therapy. Do everything you can, everything, especially if you have children. However, if you have been through counseling, if you've been through therapy, and you see sometimes the other side is not into it the way you are into it, or sometimes the other side is into it, but they cannot really change, or they're not aware enough of themselves to control their behavior, to control their mind. That is the place, if nothing helps after a while, that is the place which I think, as a rule of thumb, the best thing is to get up and move on in an honorable way, though. In an honorable way. So many people stay in bad marriages and they give an excuse like, I think of the children, when the children grow up. And I'll be honest, it happened to me also. I stayed in a relationship for quite a while. And one of the things which kept me there, one of them, was the fact that I always thought of my son. I myself, coming from a broken home and going through my parents' divorce, I always thought about my son. I want him to go to sleep and see his father and mother, and when he wakes up, the same. I'm sorry. That's the wrong way of thinking. Your children, if they see their parents at odds all the time, and if they hear their parents fighting and arguing, your children are going to grow up screwed up. They're going to be fucked up for the rest of their lives because they're going to see mommy and daddy always fighting, and that's the picture they're going to have for their relationships in the future, unless they do a lot of therapy and they become very much aware of themselves. That doesn't always happen. It's much better to get up, make a clean break, an honorable break, and let the children grow up in a place of respect and honor for both of their parents. And then, I am telling you, without any doubt, that is the best thing also, not only for you and the other side, but also for your children. But when do we know? In business, if we have a partner in business, when do we know is the right time to get up and, move on? How do we know that? I think it's the same rule of thumb. If you've done, I'm going to say something before this. In partnerships, one of the things which I counsel my clients, which is forget about the fact are partnerships good or not good. I myself, I never had a partner. I'm never going to have a partner. I don't believe in partnerships. However, there are times that maybe it is a good idea. I'm not against it really, but not for myself. But if you're going into a partnership, into a business partnership, the most important thing you can do is to take the best attorney you have and make a prenup regarding your partnership. In other words, when both parties decide to separate, how do we do it? It's better to do it up front than to have a bad relationship, and then we start coming from a place of anger and emotion, and then we try to hurt the other side attacks us, and all kinds of bad stuff happens. We have to have an agreement before we go into the partnership. What do we do when we want to dissolve the partnership? In that way, things will be much clearer. There will be nothing really to fight about. Even if we do have an agreement, how do we know when is the right time to dissolve the partnership? I think it's the same thing when we think about marriage. We have to do everything in our power to make things work. Bring in an advisor, bring in a consultant. Go to therapy with your partner. See what is not working. Bring things up. Talk about them from a place of respect, from a place of honor, from a place of dignity, not trying to accuse the other side. Because when we accuse the other side shuts down, and that will never help a relationship. However, if we've done everything in our power and we see the relationship, our partnership is not working, then I think we have a couple of ways to go about it. Either one of the partners becomes a silent partner and has nothing to do with the business, and that will be great if you can agree upon that. Or someone buys out the other side, Bambi, buy me, buy you. Or sometimes we just have to dissolve the relationship totally, including the business, which isn't always such a great idea because we take a hit in our finances. But we don't always have a choice. The thing is to get up and see the situation for what it is. Usually, we tell ourselves stories. Usually, we make things for ourselves. Between us and ourselves, we make things better than they are because we don't want to get into the situation that we have to make a decision to get up and leave in a marriage, in a partnership, or in a business. When do we know when to get up and close that store or close that business that's maybe not making money or maybe even losing money? And here is something else which plays a lot in a lot of entrepreneurs' lives, especially alpha males. We have this thing that we don't give up. We never give up. We're tough, we're big shots, we're powerful. We don't give up. And if we close down a store or if we close a business, we see it as giving up. We see it as being a wimp, and we've grown up all our lives hearing, don't ever give up. Only weak people give up. And that's something I want to talk about because it's happened to me also in my life. I should have maybe made certain decisions in business to close down certain things. Yes, I've had a lot of success, but anybody who does business for a long time, and I've been doing business around the world for more than 40 years, of course you're going to make mistakes. Of course. The thing is to cut your losses as quick as possible. But how do you know when is the right time? And when is it really a matter of quitting and giving up and being soft and not doing the work, not doing the grind? When is the right time? There's no rule that anybody can tell you if you're in a position like that, can tell you, this is the right time. It's something which comes from deep inner awareness. But I think that if you see that you've opened a business, a rule of thumb is the first year we invest in a business. The second year, maybe we make it to breaking even. The third year, we should be making money already. However, if you see that in the third year, you're losing money, I would say that if you don't wake up very soon, I would say even after 1 year of doing business, if you see that you're investing and things are not going well, you have to get up and ask yourself what's going on, and maybe even bring in a third party to help you see things more clearly and change things. We sometimes believe very much in what we're doing, in the way we're doing, and we're not open to change, and then we get fucked up. So we have to be open to change. The thing is, though, if we have a business that's not making money or even losing money after a year, 2 years, and we tried to change and we brought in outside help, we have to get up and make that hard decision. It's better to close down a business and to cut your losses than to keep on bleeding. And that's something which we have to be strong enough to admit to ourselves. I'll never forget, maybe, 30 years ago, one of my tax advisors, he came to me and he said, Eddie, hey, what is this expense here? A couple of $100 a month for a small little shop on the main street, but behind a building. And I said to him, listen, then it was 3 shops on the main street. And I took this tiny little shop just to use as a storage room. So he said to me, but Eddie, you have like 1,000 square meters storage room, a whole stock room not far from there. So I said, yeah, but sometimes we need things, within a couple of minutes, like on the spot. And then I said to him, but it's only like, what, $500 a month? And then he said to me something which I never forget. He said, Eddie, when you're strong, when things are going well, that is the time to cut unnecessary fat from your business. Because when you don't do that, and if things change, and then you have to cut, then you come from a place of weakness. When you want cut expenses, you always should come from a place of strength. That is so true. Close a business, walk away from a deal, walk away from a marriage, from a place of strength and a place of deep inner awareness, knowing that you did everything in your power to try to change things for the better, to try to make things work, but it's not always up to us. So I think, when do you walk away? When you've done everything in your power and you see things aren't changing. And like I said before, you will never really know the right moment, whether it's in a personal relationship, whether it's in your marriage, whether it's in a business partnership, or whether it's in a business that you are operating and own and it's not making or it's not doing the way it should or the way you hoped. You'll never really know when is the exact right moment. So, do everything in your power. Try to change things. Bring things to the table. Be open. Voice to the other side always. Maybe problems that we have, not as an accusation, but using a sentence like, hey, seems like there are some things that are not going so well. What do you think would be the best way that we can make things better as a team? And that gives the other side the ability, the place to come from not being attacked and to really think about things. Maybe things can be changed for the better. And if not, then we have to walk away. In any case, I hope I brought you some value on this topic of when to walk away in life and in business. If you're dealing with any crisis in your life, if you're dealing with an area that things are not going well, whether it's in your personal life, whether you're facing divorce, whether you're facing a business partnership that has to be dissolved, or a crisis in your professional life, and you might need some real support, I'm always open for a phone call to get on a quick conversation and to see how I can support you going forward from a place of strength, from a place of awareness, so that you can make the best decisions for yourself, for your family, for your business, and for your life. So don't hesitate to drop me a line and we'll get on a Zoom call and we'll see what we can do together. In any case, thanks for watching until now. I'll see you in the next one. God bless you.